Can we talk defense quickly?
Yeah, they don't play any.
Let's
Let's move on.
Let's talk defense. Are they playing
bad.
defense? No. Moving on. Next.
They can't defend the three. That's a problem. You're
problem.
going up against I think the Bucks are 4th in the league in 3-point percentage, or 6th in the league in 3-point percentage.
They are 7th in the league in 3-point percentage. That's per 100 possessions. Hang on. Per game.
They're 8th. My bad. They shoot 37.6% from three.
Oh, but they're tied with Golden State and the Lakers.
Oh, okay. They're also, they take a ton of them. They take 38.1 3-point attempts per game, which is 6th.
Jeez.
They hit the 4th amount of threes per game at 14.3. This is a really, really solid title contending team.
Yep.
I would say, like, good. If it's not the Celtics coming out of the East, it's the Bucks, at least in my opinion.
I agree.
There's a possibility that someone else like turns it on and becomes that team, but they're one of a few title contending teams in the NBA.
So that dovetails nicely into what I wanted to talk about with them, because remember all the consternation, we talked about this a little bit earlier, all the consternation about their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, their defense is so bad, they can't figure it out. They miss Drew Holiday, they've missed Chris Middleton. The Milwaukee Bucks are now up to 15th in defensive rating in the league this year. 115.7.
Okay.
I went and looked at the last 10, and then this ties into Mike Brown constantly harping on defense. And the Kings needing to get better defensively if they want to get into that championship contending tier. And the numbers back this up, because Denver last year was 15th in defensive rating. Oddly enough, they were 5th in offensive rating. That's exactly what Milwaukee is this year. But 15th over the last decade plus, 2.5 decades actually, is the lowest defensive rating for an NBA champion. Since the 2000-2001 Lakers, that is the last time a team was worse in defensive rating in the regular season than last year's Nuggets were and still won a title. That like middle of the pack would be great for Sacramento. They're 20th right now.
In defensive rating?
Yeah. They were up around 15th. Okay, that's fine. But the history says the last decade, here's the Nuggets last year, 15th in defensive rating. Here are the other champions going backwards from there. The Warriors, 1st in 22. Milwaukee, the year before that, 10th. Then you've got Lakers 3rd, Raptors 5th, Warriors 11th, Warriors 2nd, Cleveland 10th, Warriors 1st, San Antonio 3rd. You have to play defense to win titles.
No, I totally agree.
And that is, I understand that we come in here, we talk about Kevin Huerter and, Keegan Murray and his offensive development and this and that. And you have to score the basketball for sure. Frankly, the Timberwolves' lack of offensive firepower is the reason I don't think they can go win a championship this year. So there has to be a balance. But there is a pretty clear benchmark on the defensive side that you need to reach to be in that title contending tier.
Mm-hmm.
And Sacramento is just not there.
Well, I think just if we look at the 9 games since the All-Star break,
mm-hmm.
right? I think it tells the whole story. The Kings have cranked up their offense. Right now, they're 5th in the league in offensive rating at 118 since the All-Star break.
Yeah.
They are 26th in defensive rating since the All-Star break at 118.5. So they're a negative 0.5 net rating. And Kyle, they're 5-4. Like, it tells you, you're a 500 team. Maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse, but right there at 500. And if you can't figure it out, which, again, it doesn't matter how much they crank up this offense. We cranked the offense all the way up to 118 offensive rating. Your defensive rating is 118.5. You're losing.
That's
just not the formula. That's not the formula for winning. And, we started talking about, rebounding numbers earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were going to have a discussion on the Kings' lack of rebound. The Kings they're 1st in the league in defensive rebound percentage on the season.
Right.
And since the All-Star break, they're 2nd at 75.6%. Like, this is a good rebounding. They're not a good offensive rebounding team. That's just something that although since the All-Star break, they're fourth in the league in offensive rebounding. They're crashing the glass.
And they're scoring more.
But here's the problem with when you crash the glass and you become a good offensive rebounding team. I almost guarantee you part of the reason why the Kings are slipping in defensive rating is because as your offensive rebound rate goes up, your transition defense goes down.
I would be willing to bet there is a graph or some number out there that shows you the correlation between those two things, or the inverse correlation between those two things.
Yeah. It's very difficult to both be a good offensive rebounding team and a team that stops transition.
Yeah.
And then the other problem the Kings have is that their turnover percentage, which, again, the other night was an anomaly. You had 9 turnovers from Sabonis, but 9 leading to, a ton of points. And 9 of the 12, the Kings 12. So the other guys only had 3 turnovers on the night. But the Kings, since the All-Star break, they're 12th in the league at 12.9 turnovers per game. One of the games they played where every single time they turned the ball over, the other team scored was ridiculous. And I think it might have been the Bulls where they had 4 turnovers that led to like 11 points.
Yeah. I think that's right.
You're going to lose.
Yes.
You're going to, if every single time you turn the ball over, it's a live ball turnover and it's in the bucket, you're done.
Yep.
And most of them were 3-point shots or they were and ones. I mean, they were scoring at such a high efficiency. There's no way to make that up.
Nope.
So,
yeah,
wild.
that just kind of underscores it. And again, the reason I bring this up is not because it's breaking news that the Kings struggle defensively.
Yeah.
We all knew that. It's not. But it's just kind of trying to get to the core of why Mike Brown harps on it so much and why this is something that is so essential, and why when you and I talk about what this team needs moving forward, okay, we can talk about Keegan Murray all day. In fact, we talked about Keegan Murray a lot yesterday. We can talk about Davion Mitchell and look at he's performing better offensively, but everything comes down to how well this team can get stops.
Yeah.
And right now they just can't.
Well, Kyle, and I think people need to understand that all of these things, they feed each other.
No doubt.
So if you want to be a good defensive team, then you need to get defensive rebounds. The fact that the Kings are 26 in the league and what are they? 20th in the league, right? But they're number 1 in defensive rebounding. That is almost an indictment on them. The fact that you're not giving teams second chance points, but you're still horrible defensively, that's not a good thing. Like the reason you lost to the Warriors in the playoffs really was the spray 3. It was Looney grabbing an offensive rebound, relocating, firing it to somebody. Looney, in like half the games had 9 assists.
It was crazy.
It was wild. The reason you lost in the playoffs was that specific thing. This current team, that's not why they're losing. They're not giving up a bunch of second chance points. They're still a really good defensive rebounding team.
No doubt.
They're closing the possession. But like if you can't get a stop and you're pulling the ball out of the basket, it makes it harder for you to push the pace. The Kings' pace in the 9 games since the All-Star break is all the way down to 98. And their pace is bad because their defense is bad.
Yeah.
You want good pace? Okay, get a stop. Boom.
Yeah, get
out.
Run.
We're going.
It's really hard to run when you're pulling the ball out of the basket.
Exactly. And the Kings are one of the teams that are good at that, like rushing, asking for the ball, but you're at the mercy of an official completely.
Yeah.
So all of these things feed into each other. You want to be a good offensive team? Okay, be a decent defensive team. Yeah. That will lead to more transition buckets. It'll lead to more opportunity.
I mean, you've seen it. How many times this year have we seen them have a stretch where I think we saw it against the Lakers? We've seen it in, countless games this year where they have this really good stretch. I think they did it against the Clippers when they kicked the heck out of them down in Los Angeles. I know they did it against Detroit when Detroit got up big on them early and then they came back. It's generating turnovers and getting out on the run. And they've just done, when they do that, you see the impact it has on their offense, like defense leading to offense. That is just such a key thing that they are missing. And we talked earlier about when we were doing keys to victory tonight. It's like, hey, you got to make your shots. Well, you have to be able to have recourse when you're not making your shots.
Yeah, because even
that
great
is-
teams, great teams don't always they don't always hit their shots.
No, but
Oh.
you get stops and you get out and run and you get transition buckets and
Yeah. A couple of games ago, the Kings scored 76 points in the paint.
Yeah.
Where does that team go?
I think they did that 2 games in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
71
they
and
were-
76, I think, something like that. That is a formula for winning.
Damian Barling here for the handoff. D'Lo and Casey coming up at noon. We've just been talking about the defensive rating stuff with the Kings because it's something that Mike Brown just harps on. It feels like, and we talk about after every single game. And so I went and I dove into the numbers to figure out like how far away are they. And the last time a team with a defensive rating is rank, obviously the numbers are going to be different because the game has changed so much. But a defensive rating rank worse than where the Kings are this year or last year was the 2000-2001 Los Angeles Lakers. It's been like 2.5 decades.
To do what?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
To win
to win a title.
Yeah.
I left out that key thing.
Yeah. No.
And that just, but the reason I bring it up is because.
And what were the Lakers again? Because
the 2000-2001 Lakers, they were 21st in defensive rating, but I also looked this up. They gave up 97 points a game that year. They gave up that twice in the playoffs.
Wow.
They also had 2 of the greatest offensive weapons in the history of the game.
Sure. Yeah. It's just the reason I even thought about it is because of the Bucks, and there's this panic about their defense. Well, they're 15th, which is exactly what the Nuggets were last year. But then I started thinking, like, man, we talk a lot about offense with the Kings. We talk so much about, man, Kevin Huerter's falling off, and Keegan Murray, why isn't he shooting it as much? And Domas needs to shoot it more, or shoot it less, and De'Aaron needs to take more threes or fewer threes or whatever it is. It's like, man, most of their problems to me come down to the defensive end.
I disagree a little bit. Like
don't do that. It's my show.
No, I understand that like when you're talking about winning a championship, which it was the crux of the conversation, the Lakers stat. But when you talk about winning a championship, obviously this team has a lot of flaws. When you talk about this version of the Sacramento Kings succeeding, it's based on what they could do on the offensive end. Keegan's really good defensively. De'Aaron is very good defensively. But the heart of this team is their offense. Like their issues come to if shooting 18% from 3. Like that's their problem. If they're doing what they're supposed to be doing offensively, there's very few games. Interestingly enough, Milwaukee's one of them. There's very few games where when they're hitting offensively, where they're doing the things that you believe that they should do or are capable of doing offensively, they're going to lose. Unfortunately, the last time they played Milwaukee is one of those games where they hit on all cylinders offensively, except at the free throw line, or at least I think they shot like 15 of 20. It wasn't like an absurd number. It's just they missed all of those free throws at the very end of the game.
3 they needed at the end
when
of the
they
game.
could have put the game away. That's when they missed bulk of their free throws.
But to me, I push back on that a little bit because I understand what you're saying, but there's going to be nights where you go 6 for 32, and there's going to be nights where you're not shooting it well from 3. No, I know, and that's the issue right now. Is they win and lose based on whether the ball goes in the hoop or not, and there's just sometimes you make it, sometimes you miss.
Yeah,
you need to have some counterpunch. You need to be able to get a stop at a higher rate than they're getting.
I don't disagree. I just don't think that's how they're constructed.
Then that's a problem.
100%.
Okay.
I'm just trying to survive the season. That's I'm just get to the first round of the playoffs. That's all I care about right now. Get to a playoff series. And it said this 1,000 times. It's not that I want them to lose. It's not. Just get whatever happens after that happens. It's going to suck when they get eliminated. It's going to sting. But in the end, it's going to be just fine. Just freaking get there. Yeah. And then you've got issues that you have to address this offseason for sure. But this team just isn't constructed, unfortunately, to get a high volume of stops.
Yeah, there are 7 times. We talked about this on the podcast yesterday. Brennan brought this stat. There are 7 games this season where the Kings have shot 27% or below from three, they're 0-7 in those games.
Yeah.
Their 7 worst games from three, they've lost. Like,
yeah.
You can't. Well, yeah, but there has to be another counter. There has
That's
to be
it.
something else. Like, again,
agree.
the game against Houston, 6 of 32 is the worst game of the season, 18.8%. Well, like, it wasn't even close.
6 of 32 is nuts.
No,
Yeah.
it's bad. Yeah, it's bad. Like, they've been able to score in the paint a lot lately. They even outscored who'd they just lose to?
Chicago
They just lost to Chicago?
the other night.
Yeah.
No, they just lost to Houston.
Houston, thank you. Goodness gracious.
It's been a lot of games.
They scored like they outscored Houston in the paint right there, like 50 something. But the Rockets hit like 11. They hit 40%, 41% from threes. It was like 11 of 29 or something like that. It wasn't like an outrageous volume. They just wound up hitting 5 more threes. Like, you would hope Sacramento could, when that shot's not falling, attack the paint, where they've been really effective lately. It's just when you're giving up this historically awful 3-point defense that they have, 3 is going to beat 2 when you have 6 or 7 trips for the opposing team that come from the 3-point line versus the 2-point line. So it's like they're swimming against the current, and it's ultimately going to be their downfall this season. But I just hope their downfall doesn't come in the play-in.
As Damian Barling, D'Lo, and KC coming up, what do you guys got?
A lot of this, that's for sure.
Can't
Will Z
wait.
will join us to preview the game. Trista Crick's with us on Tuesdays. Jason Jones, the final hour of the show. Of course, we'll talk a lot about what's going on in the NFL as well, but we're going to get ready for tonight's game and then talk about everything that did not go Sacramento's way last night.